Hello.
Hey, that's Alex. Hi.
Hello. Hi, everyone.
Hi. Yes, I'm working too. Well, thanks, Victoria. Alexandra Wilson, thank you so much for coming. Let me just tell you all about Alex. We're going to call you Alex. Is that okay?
That's perfect. That works.
Yeah, Alexandra's too long. We've got a lot to get through, so we've got to save time. Now, this is an amazing person who has written an absolutely brilliant book called In Black and White, which is about her experiences as a lawyer, as a barrister, young barrister in London. I was just saying to Alex earlier, it's actually unusual to find a lawyer who can write. Yeah, there was Rob Paul of the Bailey, but they're pretty few and far between. Most lawyers get the sort of language clarity mangled out of them by having to write in the sort of legalese over the years. So she deserves congratulations for that. It's a great read. I mean, it's very funny as well. Lots of great stories about everyday life as a barrister. And we're going to find out how on earth you managed to find the time to write this book in between all the work you're doing, because you work incredibly hard as a barrister. Now, before that, you went to Oxford and did PPE, but you're not really coming from the sort of the sort of classes that you would expect barristers normally to come from, because they're normally sort of like signet wearing, stripy shirt, public school Oxbridge people. Alex went to the comp in Essex, and through the dint of her own study and no particular sort of massive privilege, though I'm sure your parents are incredibly supportive, has had this incredible career already, and she's 25. But what is also amazing is that we caught Alex right in the middle of a media storm today. She did actually write about this. Is her piece in the Current Idler. It's Alex's piece about how I live. And you do say here, I tend to avoid hanging around in the waiting area because I've been assumed to be a defendant, probably because you're black, maybe because you're young, and I don't know. I tend to avoid hanging around in the waiting area because I've been assumed to be a defendant too many times. Now, what happened today, Alex? You sent a tweet with just a few words, told an amazing story.
Yeah, so thank you so much for that introduction, Tom. That was very complimentary, so thank you very much. It was yesterday. Yesterday, I was in the magistrates court, and the whole day was pretty awful, to be honest. I started the day when I attended the magistrates court. As soon as I went into security, through the doors, like through the security officer asked for my full name to tick me off the defendants list. Now, of course, security procedures are in place, of course. I go to courts every day. I can tell you security procedures are in place. But when they ask for your full name, and he specifically said it was so that he could tick me off the list, that's because they assumed I was a defendant. I said to the security officer, I'm a barrister, you're not going to find my name on the list. And he actually apologized. He said, oh, I'm so sorry, my bad, and I went through. So I kind of, that one I shrugged off, because I thought, he's security, if anyone's going to be particularly harsh, might be security guards. I went in, saw my client, had a conference with my client. I then went over to the courtroom. So quite often what we do is we'll speak to the prosecutor before the case actually starts to see if we can negotiate what's going to happen in the case that day. So I was going to speak to the prosecutor, and as I went towards the courtroom, a member of the public told me, stop, you can't go in there. So I sort of looked at her. I was like, why not? And she said, well, journalists aren't allowed in. Only lawyers can go in there. I mean, I was like, right. There was an usher standing by the door, and the usher, the only person that day that seemed to actually recognise I was a barrister, was, she was just like, ignore her. Of course you can come in. Open the door for me, and it's like a set of two doors. You go through one and then the other to go into the courtroom. So I approached the second door, going into the courtroom, opened the door, and a barrister or solicitor, it wasn't entirely clear. And just for context, because I know in the media today it's been debated a lot as to how I could be, you know, confused for a defendant when we wear wigs and gowns. In the magistrates court, we don't wear wigs and gowns. So that's why you know.
Okay, yeah. So we all have this impression just from telly or whatever that barristers kind of constantly wander around with a wig and a gown on, and it's not actually like that. It might be like that in the sort of higher courts, but in the everyday magistrates courts. So you're wearing. I think you said, you know, you're, but it's not like you're wearing. I don't know, like criminal clothing, whatever that is. But I mean, you're smart and neat. You got like a black suit on.
Exactly. It will always be a black suit. So as every other barrister or solicitor would wear. But yeah, in the magistrates court, there are no wigs and gowns. So just to clear that up, because I know a lot of people sort of are confused about that. And so when I went in, there was a barrister or solicitor. I couldn't tell because they were just, you know, in a black suit sitting in the back. And she turned to me and said, you need to wait outside. I said, well, why? She said, you need to wait outside so that the usher can sign you in and you can get called on for your case like everyone else. And I was like, I'm the defence barrister. And she was like, oh, I see. And then just turned around. At this point, I was getting a bit irritated, if I'm honest, because it got to the point where...
How much of this happened? I mean, I know you talked about it in the book and in your Idler piece. How often... It's obviously a regular occurrence, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it happens on a weekly basis, but not this many times in one day.
Yeah, okay.
I think, you know, one of the things that I've realised from speaking out about it today is how many of my other colleagues are going through a similar thing, like other black colleagues, you know, who have commented on my post and said, thank you for speaking up about this, because this is something we just sort of take on the chin and have to deal with on a...
Okay, so can you just, for those who haven't seen it, just... give an idea of what you said in the Twitter post.
Yeah,
it's very succinct, and as I said, you know, it tells the whole. It's like a sort of short.
I'll read the tweet.
And then what happened afterwards as well.
Yeah, of course. So let me just get the tweet up. Okay. Should have got this prepared, like BP.
No, sorry, I should have asked you before. Yeah, I did have it somewhere on my computer, but it's gone now.
No worries at all.
But so yeah, you got to the point. You're like, actually, I'm getting quite fed up with this. So
yeah,
you decided, okay, I'm going to tweet about this.
Yeah, I mean, because even after that barrister had said something, I was in the courtroom now. I went to approach the prosecutor, and as I was walking towards the prosecutor, the court clerk, or legal advisor who sits up at the front, loudly said to me, you need to get out of the courtroom. And to be honest, at that point, I felt like I was about to cry. Like, I'm going to be completely honest, because it's not nice for anyone to be shouted at, especially at work. Like, I just don't think that anyone should be shouted at. Defendant, professional, no one needs to be shouted at. But then I felt like a child just being ordered out. And that was the fourth time. And I know one was a member of the public, but the third time by a professional that day, that morning, in the space of about half an hour, that I'd been told to, like, that I clearly wasn't a barrister. And, you know, again, I said, I am the defence barrister. I'm trying to speak to the prosecutor. And she sort of went, oh, right. And then turned and, you know, carried on with her computer. No apology. The only person who actually apologised was the security guard, as I said, when I first...
Yeah, because I mean, you would have thought that, as you said, in a professional context, the professional people would actually be quite mortified by making such a mistake.
Yeah, and instead it was just like, right, okay, and then just carrying on with their day. And, you know, my tweets, I don't want to bore anyone. I mean, feel free to go and look at my Twitter after. But, you know, it basically outlines in probably a more succinct way than I've just said it, but exactly that and what happened. And
then you're getting fed up with this. And then...
exactly. I felt exhausted. Like, to be honest, I think, you know, that was before I'd even started my case. All of that had happened and I hadn't even started my case yet. And I literally, once I'd spoken to the prosecutor, who, to be fair to him, was very friendly and nice, I left that courtroom and I was like, oh my God, I've still got my case to do. And I'm tired. I'm genuinely, you know.
Yeah, no, I mean, I imagine it must be like going on the stage a little bit, is it? When you go up to defend someone and go through the case. I mean, you must get a bit sort of nervous or excited beforehand. Is that true?
Yeah, there's definitely an adrenaline rush. There definitely is. And I think, you know, a very senior barrister once said to me, when you stop being nervous, that's a bad sign, because, you know, particularly I do crime, so someone's liberty is pretty much always on the line. You know, someone's at risk of prison most of the time, but you know, quite often a community order or a substantial fine. And so these are really important things to people. And if I'm not getting that adrenaline rush, like, do I care? How much do I really care? You know, and so I think it's important that every time I go, I do kind of recognize how big my responsibility is, and that does give me a bit of a rush. So
okay, so you sent the tweet, and then tell us what happened today, because it's turned into a massive story. It's sort of it's, you know, I mean, thanks for you know, doing the idler thing, because you're getting calls from rather grander newspapers and magazines like the New York Times. I mean, what happened today? Why do you think it went mad, and how did it all happen?
I think the reason that it's picked up so much is because a lot of people can relate to it. And in fact, I think it's the contrast. I think, you know, what we can see in going through the comments, and there have been so many comments, it's been quite hard to kind of keep up. But, you know, in the comments, there are Black barristers and Black solicitors, but also other Black professionals who are saying, this is an experience that I completely recognise. And, you know, it's not even just Black people. I've seen in the comments, there are some, you know, white women who have said, you know, I've felt instances of this. You know, I can't say I felt exactly how you felt, but there have definitely been times where, as a woman in my particular field, I've felt that people have assumed that I'm, for example, a doctor said it to me earlier, you know, people always assume I'm the nurse. You know, and a female construction worker said to me that people, you know, she comes in high vis and people just assume she's the cleaner. And
it shows you how sort of deep these prejudices go, don't they? Because I mean, none of those people, you know, clearly none of those people who mistook you for a defendant would consider themselves to be sort of racist or anything like that.
No, I don't think they would. And I think part of the problem is that some of these views are quite deeply embedded. I don't think people necessarily realise they have the views that they have, because one of the things that I've realised is that it's not just white staff that will often assume that I'm the defendant. Sometimes it is Black or Asian staff that will do exactly the same thing. And for me, that indicates not a personal racist view. It's that, you know, there is this underlying bias that actually when you see a Black person come into court, the assumption is that they are a defendant or they are the defendant's family. They just couldn't possibly be a barrister. So even, you know, Black or Asian people are operating in that system and treating Black people coming in exactly the same way. And for me, that's a much deeper problem than just a personal racist view.
Well, it's incredible what you've done already. You're only 25. You're going to do amazing things as you go on, I'm sure, and you're really going to contribute massively positively to, you know, the legal system and probably the whole country. But can I just sort of go backwards a bit on your biography? So I think you said your grandparents were Windrush generation, and your father was, I think, born here, so you're third generation, and you're an Essex girl, as we can tell from your voice, and, which is probably another well, you know, but people also you got everything.
My mum said to me she was going through the Daily Mail comments, which questionable. We shouldn't do that. I know.
No, don't look at them.
But my mum did just say to me that someone had commented that if I didn't sound so much like a chav, then maybe people would take me more seriously. So the accent thing really is a thing.
That's another thing. I mean, even more than, you know, you've got the whole lot rolled into one, like youth, race, gender, but even more than that, the Essex voice. I know. So you've got so many prejudices to overcome. Because that's not fair either. That's another one, isn't it? The sort of prejudice against people with an Essex accent.
I love it.
You talk about that in your book as well.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I think it's, you know, no one ever has an issue understanding me. So I think, you know, people can laugh at the Essex accent as much as they want. I think it's endearing. That's what I think.
It's lovely. It's lovely. But so, and what was your school like? I mean, how many from your school would go to Oxbridge?
So I went to a state comprehensive until I was 16, and no one would go to Oxford. My school was quite focused on behaviour management. So I remember, you know, in a lot of our classes, it would literally be trying to get some kids to not beat up other kids. Like I remember every music lesson, for example, there was a boy that was routinely locked in the cupboard for the entire music lesson. And, you know, it was things like that. When I hear about some people's school experience, I'm like, oh, that sounds lovely. To go to your school. Mine was mayhem.
Yeah. But did you have one or two good teachers who inspired you?
Absolutely. And you know, my parents are both teachers, and I think that made a big difference. Like both of my parents, my mom's a head teacher and at a primary school, and my dad is a deputy head at a pupil referral unit, so when kids get kicked out of school, so he's always dealt with
oh god, so what, he's dealing with the ones who've been kicked out of the school that you just described.
Yeah, well, exactly, they'd leave my school and off they'd go. But yeah, so no, I think my parents have been, you know, brilliantly supportive, and their view was always, you know, you'll do well wherever you go, which is why they sent me into that school. But I still have a little bit of resentment for that.
Yeah. Well, why did you? I'm sure you've told them about your resentment under lockdown as well. You've had plenty of time. But so and then what about sixth form?
Yeah, so then for sixth form, I moved to my local grammar school. So in Essex, there are still some grammar schools. I know that they seem to be dying out, but I went to a girls' grammar school, and I had quite a difficult experience there because of the school I'd come from. The head of sixth form made it very clear that, you know, even though I'd done really well at GCSE, you know, just before my move, and the first thing she said to me when I went to go and, you know, meet her at the school was, you might have been the best in your school, but you need to know you're not going to be the best here. And that attitude kind of continued throughout sixth form. It was this, we are not going to let you get too big for your boots. And I was 16, you know, and as many teenage girls, I was pretty insecure anyway. So, you know, I did not need an adult telling me that, you know, I wasn't going to be the best here. And I think when I went to apply for Oxford, you know, I didn't even know anyone that had gone to university straight from school. Like
let alone going to Oxford or Cambridge.
Yeah, to Oxford or Cambridge. I mean, my parents have done absolutely brilliantly. But, you know, both of them went to university as mature students, as adults. I know at 18 you're an adult, but, you know, proper adults. And so I didn't even know people that had gone straight to uni. And for me, that, you know, Oxford was like a million miles. Like,
so you must have set your mind on it, Alex, at some point.
Do you know something funny? The reason I set my mind on it is people are always like, you know, where did this idea come from? I'll be completely honest. So I was really quite bossy as a kid, and I don't like the word bossy, but that probably is the most accurate way to have described me. I'm the oldest of 4 kids, and, you know, I did boss my siblings around, and people always used to joke that I'd be Prime Minister. And it's kind of funny now because it's become a little bit, you know, people are like, oh, you actually could.
Yeah, you're getting closer. And, you know, the other thing, you'll certainly do a better job than the people that, you know, blah, blah.
So people, you know, people always used to joke, you'll become Prime Minister, and I kind of thought, oh, I wonder what Prime Ministers did. And so I Googled it, as every teenager does. I Googled it, and I saw that everyone did PP at Oxford. So I was like, that's what I'm going to do.
Okay, well, that's what I was saying. Why did you do PP? And you work backwards.
Yeah, I really did.
Because it's true that, you know, it's probably, you know, there are loads of, I don't know, Oxford PPE graduates in the House of Commons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and, you know, that was, I kind of thought all the Prime Ministers pretty much had done that. I know there were a few exceptions, but a lot had done PP at Oxford, and I kind of thought, well, if I'm going to lead the country, let me do the degree that leads the country. And I thought, you know, 16-year-old and I remember telling my parents, and, you know, my parents were sort of like, I mean, you know, most of your course is going to be kids from Eton, like, it's a very competitive course, like, you know, we believe you can get there, but are you sure that's what you want to do? I was like, absolutely. I want to reach for the stars. So that's where it came from.
Well, and so did you, and what A-levels did you do? Did you get like A star A or something like that?
So yeah, so I got A star AA, so yeah, all right. And then I did history, English and maths were my A levels. I also did a politics AS level. I know they don't do those anymore, AS levels, but we were encouraged to kind of do 4 and then drop 1 after a year. So yeah, so that was
What college was it at Oxford that you went to?
I went to University College. So we say, people who went to University College, we say we were the first college. I think there's a bit of a dispute over that. But yeah, it's also...
Really? So it's like sort of 14th century or something like that?
Yeah,
really medieval,
yeah, and you know, the reason we say it's called University College is because it was the university.
It was the university, yeah.
But yeah, so no, it was it goes by Univ as well, but yeah, that's where I applied. And I remember when I applied, a friend of mine who was at our local private school that I wish I could have gone to, I remember him saying to me that you're not in this resentment, are you? Not at all. But no, he said to me that he was like, why would you apply there? You know, that they're known for being very stuffy. They're known for having loads of private school kids. Like, why did you pick that? And I remember stressing so much. I remember thinking, oh my goodness, why did no one tell me that, like, there are ones that accept more state school kids? Like, why have I gone and applied to the posh one? Like, oh my God, I'm never going to get in. And, you know, I went to my interview, and at my interview, oh my God, it was quite an ordeal. The staff were lovely, and the professors were fine, but the other students.
Oh no, why? What were they like?
Oh my goodness. I remember the first guy I met so you stay there. What you do is you go up there and you stay there for like 2 nights. And they try to spread your interviews, you know, over the 3 days basically, so that you're not overwhelmed. Because you have a politics one, a philosophy one, and an economics one. And you know, on the first day, they kind of encourage you to mingle, and you get given a bedroom there. And I was like, oh my goodness, like, this is like, there was an ensuite, and I was like, whoa, this is like a hotel. For me, this is pretty impressive. I was like, oh my goodness. And so I was like, wow, this is amazing. And one of the guys, when we were in the common room, he was complaining about how small the bedrooms were. And I was thinking, you know, we've got a double bed and ensuite. I mean, that's what, he was like, it's smaller than my bedroom at school. And I was like, school? What do you mean? Why have you got a bedroom at school? Like, I'm so confused. And he was like, why don't you have a bedroom at school? And I just completely, like, it just went over my head. And it was only when I called my mum, being like, this guy, I said, the bedrooms are small. And my mum's like, you know, boarding school, obviously. And I was like, oh, right. You know, that had gone right over my head. But yes, I mean, it was definitely like different kinds of people.
Oh, wow. And, what was it like when you were, and you got in, because, you know, obviously congratulations, and did this sort of thing carry on when you were there? I mean, you know, actually in their defense, these colleges they just want the best, most intelligent people. So, I mean, I don't think they're necessarily sort of prejudiced, but, you know, I might be wrong, but, you know, sort of traditionally they've had this certain type. Was that a certain type there? Was there anyone else like you there?
I mean, no, it wasn't really. But I would agree with you that the colleges are making an active, I certainly felt that UNEV were like making an active effort to try and bring in, like, you know, the smartest people. I think what's so difficult is that a lot of young people aren't well prepared for applying to Oxford. You know, they're doing the bare minimum at their schools and working very hard at it, but they don't realise that all the extra reading that they should be doing, because there's no one there to point them in the right direction. Yeah,
I mean, they say at Oxbridge colleges they want someone who's sort of virtually an undergraduate, ready to go on day one. They've taken an interest in the subject beyond just, as you say, doing the bare minimum.
And that's the thing. I don't mean bare minimum at all in a patronising way, because, you know, learning a syllabus, there are people in state schools getting the most insane, incredible grades because they, you know, they've studied so hard, but they might just not know where to go in terms of that extra reading, because there's not someone giving them a reading list saying, this is what you need to read if you want to apply to Oxford. And it's those little bits of help that actually make a huge difference when you go to interview. Because if you've read, you know, 10 different books on a certain area, and you know you're applying to a college where the professor there has written half of those books, when you go into that interview, you're going to be more confident than someone who's gone to a state school who might have read a few books that they've Googled and think might be, you know, along the right lines, and sort of delved into in that way. So I think,
okay, well, Alex, thanks for saying this, because this is, you know, it's about reading books, right? Because, I mean, it's not just about Googling. That's the worst way to learn something. The reason I'm saying this is because this is what we're trying to convince our own children. I'm sure there are other parents out there as well. Like, read the book, read books. It's actually that easy. The more books you read, the cleverer you are, really.
I do think it makes a difference. I really do. I think, you know, I remember when I was a kid, my parents, and I would encourage all parents to do this, like, not being a parent myself, I say that, but my parents really made like the bookshop super fun. So like, I remember from a really young age, it was like, you know, you can go into Waterstones and pick any book you want, you know, and we can like, you have an hour, you can go and like do what you want in the book. And for a young kid, I don't know how it works when you get a bit older, but for a young kid, that's so exciting. I remember going around and being like, I want all of these books. I came back with like a huge, well, obviously my parents were like, you can get two, but you know, I think that getting kids super excited about reading is, you know, part of the, like, what am I trying to say here? It's one of the most important.
Education.
It's so important.
Yeah.
Part of the challenge.
Yeah. And what set you on a career in law? I mean, it's one of the many fascinating things in the book is that you say some of your, I think it was cousins or brothers, were like, Alex, why are you going into the sort of camp of the oppressor in a sense?
Yeah, very much so. So, I mean, the thing that really kind of got me thinking about law was when I was in sixth form, my close family friend was killed, and he was murdered by two boys who were in a gang. And, you know, my family friend wasn't at all. And, you know, the way the news published the article was very much, you know, this is what they called it was like a mistaken identity case, essentially. So because my family friend had been a young black boy in London, literally in the wrong place at the wrong time, you know, in a place where earlier that day a gang had a member of their gang killed by, you know, a rival gang. And they were out to seek revenge, and frankly they saw my family friend, a boy they didn't know, and killed him. And for me, that was, you know, I was 17 at the time, and he was the same age as me. We were the same age, and it was genuinely one of the most difficult things. I was preparing for my A-level exams, and to be told that, you know, someone I considered him a cousin. You know, he was best friends with my cousin. We'd all hang around. He would be there at Boxing Day. It was definitely like a family friend. And, you know, for him to have been killed at that age just really made me kind of question what was going on in society, like what was going on. And I became interested in the trial that was happening of the two boys that murdered him, because for me, one of the things that was so difficult is trying to understand why two young boys, and they were both young themselves, would be in the position that they were in, that they were so willing to kill someone that they didn't know. Like, for me, that was really difficult to get my head around, because how had it got to that point where there were, you know, there were boys that were willing to take life, and they, you know, then they serve life sentences in prison. So they're giving up their life too. And that was the thing that, you know, interested me. And yeah, I began to look into court cases where there were kind of similar things happening, and that kind of sparked my interest in law. You know, obviously I applied for PPE, as I always was going to, because I thought I can always do a law conversion after.
Or become a prime minister if the law doesn't work out.
You know, that backup plan.
Plan B.
But yeah, you know, so, but that was where it kind of sparked. And from then, you know, in my degree, I mostly focused on philosophy and politics, and there's a huge overlap between philosophy, politics and law. So
that was a good sort of, that was a good sort of foundation for the next bit. Can we just skip ahead to your career at the bar so far? So, what's amazing is that you sort of you got what's called the Queen's Scholarship, and so you've sort of you had quite an accelerated path already. Because I know it's quite hard. Is it pupillage to get that first year in the chambers?
Yeah, absolutely. So, just as a little outline, the kind of stages are, you know, you either do a law degree or you do a different degree and then do a law conversion. And then after that, you're kind of all on the same the same a level playing field, just kind of, you know, you've got your law basics. You then do, to become a barrister, the bar professional training course, which is where we learn how to be an advocate. We practice our advocacy, we learn about litigation. It's the kind of practical skills you need to be a lawyer. And then you have pupillage, where you put it all into practice. And so that's what Tom was just referring to. You know, the first year, it's like an apprenticeship. You kind of work alongside other barristers, you shadow for the first 6 months, and then you do your own cases, and you really are thrown in at the deep end.
Well, that sounds quite a difficult process. I got a friend called Harry Mount who gave it up because he just couldn't take it. He didn't like the guy that he was sort of shadowing. And again, he found it, you know, you were saying earlier about, from your book and from some bits I picked up, I mean, it is a bit school-like. People sort of boss you around and they're quite sort of curt. But your year, I imagine, must have been pretty good because, you know, you carried on and you're obviously a fan of the law.
Yeah, and, you know, I think who your supervisor is can make a real difference. So, Tom, you're saying about your friend. I mean, it does make a huge difference. So I was very lucky. I had I had 3 supervisors in total, but my first 2 that I was shadowing most of the time, they were so supportive. You know, I knew that I still can call them all the time. You know, they've both been, you know, messaging me today, checking that I'm okay after seeing the kind of media storm that's been going on. But they made themselves very accessible to me. They were always willing to help. No question was too stupid. And it can be quite an intense, you know, work. I don't want to use the word relationship, so take it out, but a work relationship, because it's particularly in that first, you know, few months. I was literally the shadow of my supervisor. You know, sometimes he'd go toilet and I'd get up and he'd be like, no, I'm going, I'm going to the toilet. You can sit back down. You know, it really is you tailing around.
You're not really allowed to say anything, is that right? You have to sort of keep your mouth shut half the time.
I was quite lucky again, like that my supervisors would invite me my views on things, and I think that makes a huge difference. You know, they respected my view, or at least told me they did.
So what's your overall, you know, Oxford and now the bar, as we said at the beginning, you know, the stereotypes image we have of it is that it's dominated by, you know, smart young men who went to Eton and they have a signet ring and this sort of thing, and they got sort of floppy hair and they're kind of slightly patronising, but they can also be great people as well. What's the mix like now for you, and how do you get on with those, you know, what we might call more sort of traditional types?
Yeah, I mean, diversity at the bar is an issue that we're kind of trying to deal with. It's getting better. The more junior end is actually becoming a lot more diverse. So in my chambers, for example, I did pupillage. Most chambers take on about between 1 and 4 pupils a year. So there's not many of you in your kind of learning cohort. There were 2 of us, and my co-pupil was another young woman, which was obviously lovely. Like, we got on really well. We're good friends now. And the year, you know, I say year, it is like school, isn't it? Like the year above, the ones who were taken on the year before us, they were 2 women as well. So, you know, I do think that particularly on the gender side, I'm definitely starting to see more of a evening out. In terms of the kind of ethnicity side of things, it is getting better. I think there's a particular problem, and I was looking at the Bar Standards Board, you know, our regulator, they do a report every year on diversity, and there's still a particular problem for black barristers, particularly in the kind of BAME category. You know, BAME is kind of a term that kind of everyone who's not white, but we all have our own identities. So
I know it's a bit of a weird one, yeah, but yeah.
I can see how sometimes it can be useful if you're talking about a particular experience that might be unique to someone who is not white. But of course, there are, you know, nuances in between. And I think what this report recognised is that in terms of black barristers, we're still underrepresented. Sorry. Okay,
so your book. So what you're saying with what you're doing is that the law clearly should be much more diverse, because then it'll make it better. Now, what comes across very strongly in your book, I think, is that you're able to relate to some of these as we said, quite Dickensian characters, and some of them sort of try and give you the run around. They pretend to be lame and they talk in different accents and stuff like that. But a lot of the time, you feel you can get a sort of better result for them defending them in the magistrates' court because you can sympathise. You sort of know what they're about a bit more than the boy who's been to Eton or whatever. And therefore, doing that, you can actually improve the whole system.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right, Tom. I think what it boils down to is trust, ultimately. You know, we as barristers, particularly junior barristers, and I think this comes across quite a lot in my book, we get given our instructions very late. Very, very late.
Yeah, just like a couple of minutes before going in.
I mean, honestly,
yeah.
My case yesterday, for example, I was, I had to be in court by 9 o'clock, but I was given the papers at 11:30 at night. And that's the sort of timetable that we're constantly working on. And, you know, those papers might take 3 hours to read. And so my choice is often, you know, do I go to bed now and sleep and get up at like 5 a.m. and then wake up, or do I just wait it out? You know, last night I was up till 3:30. So hopefully you can't
tell. No, we can't. You've got this amazing energy because also, I've written books. It's really hard work writing a book, but you managed to write this, not only write a book, but write a very good book. While doing this, when did you find the time to actually fit in the writing?
It's the training of not sleeping much. That's what it is. Like, people honestly ask me this, and I do think a lot of it is cutting down on sleep, and it's probably not the healthiest thing, so I'm not recommending that. Don't sue me, anyone.
Yeah, this is the Idler magazine you're talking to.
I mean, please don't sue me for saying don't sleep when everyone's got. But I mean, I think I probably should sleep a lot more, to be honest. But it's that and time management. I work quite well under pressure. I think that was one of the things that Oxford taught me quite well, actually. You know, it's a very intense environment. When I look at some of my friends' university experiences and my university experience, it was quite different. You know, the amount we were asked to write. Yeah,
it's incredibly hard work, isn't it?
You know, yeah, we were asked to write like 2 or 3 essays a week. And I had friends in uni being like, I have 1 a term. And I'm like, nice for you, thanks. You know, so it can be very intense, but that's the skill. You know, I think that actually taught me to work really well under pressure, and in this job, that's super important. So when I was approached to write a book, I was like, oh, go on then, you know, let's just add to my plate.
So was it, did someone come to you and go, look, Alex, you know, you've got so many great stories, would you like to put it into a book?
Yeah, so I tweet again. I tweeted it was in January 2019, so the beginning of last year. And I tweeted a photo of myself. And I know that sounds really vain, but it wasn't, I promise. It was a photo of me in my wig and gown. And the tweet essentially was sort of saying who I am. So, you know, it was like, I was 24 at the time. So I was saying, you know, 24-year-old, I'm from Essex. I'm mixed race, and you know, this is what a barrister looks like. And that tweet kind of picked up, and I think a lot of people would sort of found it quite refreshing to see that actually the bar is not what we perceive it. Well, it's not all what we perceive it to be. And you know, there are like different faces coming in, and I had some literary agents reach out to me and say, you know, your experiences are going to be super interesting, because obviously I hadn't actually had that many experiences at that point. It's a bit of a gamble. You know, I hadn't really done many cases. I hadn't done any cases at that point, in fact, other than shadow. But I think they took a bit of a gamble and sort of said, you know, we think you'll be really interesting. Can we see a bit of your writing? I was writing a blog at the time. They were like, we like how simply you write. So we were joking about that.
Well, we were saying that earlier, everyone. Yeah, because I mean, you know, it's a sign of intelligence to be able to get across this quite complicated stuff in simple terms, and also make it fun and readable. And Alex's book is very readable. I read it in 2 sittings, and it's also very funny. It's good fun.
No, I'm so glad you think so. And yeah, so that's what I did. I wrote it, and it was actually quite nice because I could write bits of it while it was happening, you know. And of course, all the cases are anonymized in it, but the facts are very much true. So, you know, everything that's happened, people have said you literally couldn't make it up, and I'm like, I know. They are real stories.
Well, it reminds me of Dickens, because I mean, Dickens, as you know, he was the court reporter. That's how he got started, and he was seeing this real life in front of him every day, and that's the sense you get with yours, that you're seeing these terrible, awful situations, really, that people have got themselves into, often as a result, as you say, and argue in the book, basically of poverty. Now, I've just got one very quick question before we go to the audience.
Yeah, of course.
Which is, how does it go down with the colleagues? Are you allowed to do this? And because and actually the subtitle is slightly misleading, because I mean, it's something like, how the law must be fixed. But you're a great advocate, obviously, for the law, and you respect the law massively. But how has it gone down with colleagues?
Do you know, it's a very good question, because I was so nervous about how it was going to go down with my colleagues, and I didn't tell anyone. I just sort of thought the best thing to do is write it, publish it, and then tell everyone. Because I was like, then it's done. I can't beat myself up with all the anxiety.
Yeah.
So I was quite nervous about it, but actually the reception's been really lovely. I think a lot of people felt that I articulated a lot of the things that they'd felt. So, some of like my female colleagues, some of my Black or Asian colleagues felt that I'd given, them a bit of a voice, in that, I don't just speak for me in a lot of my experiences. It's something that I know my colleagues have faced. But also, a lot of my white colleagues were like, actually, it's really interesting to hear how things are from your point of view. And, there's some things that we might just overlook, that we don't really see as problematic because it's not affecting us. Or, there's some things that with our clients, we might be doing that we're not properly gaining the trust of our clients, because that's just not an issue to us. So we wouldn't even think twice about it. And it's been really nice to see. For me, that's the most important thing. Like the fact that I've got colleagues that have reflected on the things that I've said, and that actually that might make a difference to clients. I couldn't ask for anything more. Like my clients are like the center of everything for me. So if other people's clients are going to benefit from that, then that's obviously a brilliant thing.
Well, it is a brilliant thing. It's absolutely fantastic, and it's so illuminating. And also, apart from the sort of issues about race, gender, and your Essex accent as well, it's and these sort of Dickensian character sketches that you do, which are fascinating. It also just teaches someone like me who doesn't really know much about the law, about the processes. Now, Victoria, should we go over to some questions from our
yes,
willing audience?
People have been desperate to ask questions. Alex, we've got questions from Jacqueline and Nevielle. Can we have you first, Jacqueline, and then Nevielle? And then we've got maybe time for a couple more after you two. Jacqueline?
Yeah, okay. So, hi, Alex. Thank you for speaking. Super inspiring, and yeah, really lovely evening. What I wanted to ask you is, you yourself have described your journey to the bar, or that people constantly told you that the bar wasn't for people like you. And I'd like to know, what was the one main thing that always kept you going nonetheless?
Whoa.
If you can.
Yeah, of course. I think I just love a challenge, to be honest. I think when someone tells me I can't do something, it's a bit of a dangerous game for me. Like I really do start to want to prove them wrong. And I think I've kind of had that from quite a young age, that even when I remember, doing my GCSEs, and people were sort of like, there's no way you're going to get like, because I was like, I want to get all A's and no stars. And people were like, green one. And I was like, watch me. I was like, it was kind of that attitude. I think I have a little bit of a competitive streak in me. And ultimately, that works well in this job because you want to win. But yeah, I think that was what it was every time. And don't get me wrong, that's not me saying that I wasn't affected by people when they said that stuff, because I'd be lying if I said I wasn't. Sometimes I would have a little cry, or have a rant to my family, and just sort of be like, maybe I am picking the wrong thing. Like everyone is telling me that this isn't for me. I look around, there's not people really like me. So, you know, maybe they're right. And I would have those moments of self-doubt. But my parents are my mum especially, she's quite competitive too. She'd be like, you are not going to let that person stop you, are you? Because you didn't work that hard for this person to get in your way. And I was like, yeah, you're right, Mum, you're right. So that's helped a lot. I think that kind of wanting to prove people wrong is not actually, I'm sure, don't get me wrong, it's probably very annoying when I'm dating all my friends, because you know, wanting to constantly prove people wrong is not a very sociable attribute. But,
no, but I know what kind of situations you mean.
Exactly,
Yeah.
So thank you.
Cool, thank you.
Great question and great answer. Great mum you have, Alexandra.
She is brilliant.
Oh, somebody to aspire to, I think, as well. Neviel, you there? Neviel, you there? Could we go to Claire then, if Neviel's not there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Hi, Alex. Gosh, that was truly inspirational. And a very long time ago, I was also a comp girl who went to Cambridge and did medicine. So I kind of understand a little bit about what you're talking about, but all the things that you've described are just phenomenal. But do you think we've got to wait until you're a judge before we've got full diversity in the judiciary?
Thank you, Claire. And yeah, I'm sure you can relate, because to be honest, I think, you know, anyone coming from a comp school going to those universities is tough. In terms of me becoming a judge, it's funny, someone actually tweeted me that earlier. They were just like, you know, hurry up and become a judge. And I'm like, right, I know I'm doing things when I'm young, but I might be a bit young for that. But I hope not, to be honest. You know, there are a lot of people working on changing the lack of diversity. I think what's so difficult is that, you know, there are specifically, for example, black barristers who are in senior positions. There's just not enough of them, and a lot of pressure then falls on them. And I'm experiencing this even myself. Sometimes I just feel tired, and that was yesterday when I did that tweet, because sometimes it does feel like you're carrying a lot, and you know, you do want to make all of these changes, but I don't want it to just have to be me all the time. Sometimes I just want to watch Netflix, you know. I just want to relax. And I'm sure that, you know, those black barristers or those female barristers who are more senior than me probably feel that exact same feeling. They're doing a lot already, but there are only a few of them, and sometimes that pressure does feel immense. So I'm hopeful. You know, I have some excellent mentors who are more senior than me, you know, QCs, judges, but I probably know all of them because there just aren't that many. Do you know what I mean? So I probably do know all of the senior black QCs, or at least know their names if I don't know them personally, because there just aren't that many. And until it becomes more common, it's gonna be really difficult. I do think it's gonna be difficult. But I don't want to overlook the work that's already being done, because there is a lot. But as I say, when it falls on so few people, it's just really tough.
And by the way, I'll vote for you when you stand for PM.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Claire. Claire, who's just been on our retreat with us, actually. And I rather like the way she describes herself as the one-legged doctor from Oxford. Claire's an oncologist.
Yeah.
And amazingly had her own cancer years ago. Left as a very fit, I can tell you, feisty one-legged doctor from Oxford. So great question, and thank you for coming, Claire.
Thank you.
We are at the end of the time, and I'm really sorry to the people who we haven't got time for questions. Tom, would you like to round up? And you've got a song you want us to play, haven't you? Alex, thank you so much for being such an inspiration. Amazing to meet you.
Thank you, everyone,
Absolute
for taking
privilege.
time out of your evenings to listen to me. So thank you.
Absolute privilege. Tom, do you want to finish off?
Hi, sorry, I could start muting myself.
Tom.
Yeah, absolutely. All the comments down the side, Alex, as well. I mean, it's just so inspiring. And I want to share this to everyone, every young person, and everyone really. So it'll have a second life on our YouTube channel. But thanks so much for making the time. I know you've got to go and take a call from the editor of the New York Times in a moment. And there's going to be people inviting you to, stand as an MP as well. So you're going to be incredibly busy.
Yeah,
Don't work too hard though.
Don't worry. I'm going to.
Idler magazine. You got to, you got to take some time off sometimes.
No, thank you. Honestly, it's been genuinely. I was in a bit of a bad mood, and this has really cheered me up. So thank you, everyone.
You're amazing.
Thanks so much for coming. Now,
here we go.
We've lined up a very witty song to go out with.
Here we go. Thanks, everybody.